And so how can you say that and say, yet I had no vision, knowing that I started that? So I want to show you just a few communications, because this is the only way the truth can get out, because this isn't going, you're not going to hear this from them now, because they're all banding together. They're all being paid by Rick now. I'm talking about the employees. So this is a communication from one of the top executives from earlier this year, 8 months ago, in January of 2024. This is in September. Something big is coming, not in the world, but something big is coming. I continue to pray for my wife and my kids. Yeah, they're hurting in all of this because they see what's been done to their dad. I'm very sorry. I'm sorry to you for letting you down. I'm sorry to Catherine. I'm genuinely sorry. More important than anything is I want, from the bottom of my heart, I want to say to everyone that I'm sorry. I want to say to you that if you've been hurt, let down by me, by anyone, done wrong by me or by anyone, to the victims of abuse, emotional abuse, spiritual abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, I am so sorry.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, I am giving you an update on the latest developments related to Chris Reed's resignation from MorningStar Ministries as CEO and the lead pastor. If you've been following this ministry, you know that MorningStar, founded by Rick Joyner, has been influential in prophetic and charismatic movements for years. But recently, their lead pastor, Chris Reed, decided to step down. In this video, you will know the real reasons behind his resignation, whereby Rick Joyner is in the middle of it, Chris apologies to several individuals, and how the future looks like for Chris Reed. Let's get into it. Chris explains what Rick Joyner did to him that made him resign, which is very different from the reason he had mentioned in his resignation letter. In the letter, Reed explained he was returning leadership of the ministry to founder Rick Joyner to focus more on what God called him to do, which is to prophesy, pastor, teach, preach, and write. He also pointed to the 2023 arrest of former church volunteer and police officer, Erickson Douglas Lee, who was accused of sexually abusing multiple minors connected to a youth group of MorningStar Fellowship Church, while revealing that both he and his wife, Missy, were sexually abused as children. Days later, after his resignation, a lady came out exposing him of having an inappropriate relationship with her. He confessed and said he went through a restoration process before taking over the leadership of MorningStar from Rick Joyner. He was also attacked by Rick Joyner due to the way he left, with Rick saying he lacked the heart of a shepherd. Rick also claimed that Chris didn't have a vision for the ministry, and there was no growth. Now, Chris has released more receipts that prove the contrary.
Every single time Rick Joyner steps behind a microphone, whether he's doing a rant or whether he's doing a sermon, he has to bring me up saying that I had no vision. He compared me to Solomon trying to carry out the vision of his father and all of that stuff. And everybody that knows when I was there knows that's not true. We were moving forward with expanding Heritage Court, a living center for 50 plus community, making it less of a hotel and more of a living community. I had settled with York County to move forward with rebuilding the 21-story tower. We had the green light. I mean, it was done, sealed, and many can testify and know to this, that it was ready to be done. But I've got a bad feeling it'll never be done, because now this is about, with Rick, it's about, litigating these federal lawsuits that in the end he won't come out with any money. It'll only probably end up with a demolished tower. But, I would just simply say that many of these things that I'm saying to you all would probably seem hard to believe, especially if you only come on Sunday mornings or you just attend the conferences. You're not going to see the inner workings of what it's like actually working there. But, some of the leaders, not all, some of the leaders at MorningStar have went on this tirade of talking about condemning my leadership, saying nothing was accomplished, nothing happened. And it all boils down to the handful that are saying that is they just didn't get what they wanted all of the time. And so they were angry at me for that. But I inherited structures that were already established before I took over, and I had to work somewhat within the framework of those structures while trying to change them. In fact, I don't even like showing communications, especially not salacious or incriminating or conversations you're having where you're being lighthearted just with friends. But because no one from MorningStar is willing to speak up and to defend my tenure there, I have to show you communications that are relevant to the situation, not just communications to trash people or to embarrass them, but communications to show you what you're being presented with now or being told, whether you are in the fellowship of ministries, whether you are attending the conferences or attending on Sunday morning. You need to know what you're being told is absolute nonsense. And as I said before, many people say, just be quiet, don't speak a word. Well, that's easy to say when you're not the one that every week, every single time you're getting up and being demolished. Rick said something recently where I think it was at the Friday night School of the Prophets. He said that I didn't have a vision of my own and that, that was part of the reason why I didn't succeed. And then he said, but Chris did start the School of the Prophets. And then he went on to say, I didn't realize how important you all were, speaking to the students. He said, MorningStar is supposed to be a school for the prophets. That's like our major main whole purpose. And so how can you say that and say, yet I had no vision, knowing that I started that? So I want to show you just a few communications, because this is the only way the truth can get out, because you're not going to hear this from them now, because they're all banding together. They're all being paid by Rick now. I'm talking about the employees. So this is a communication from one of the top executives from earlier this year, 8 months ago in January of 2024. This is in September. I've marked out names to protect identities, but I want you to see that this is from one of the top executives, not former ones, the current ones that are still there. I want you to see this. This is Tuesday, January the 9th. You can see the date there. I'm writing a text to this man, this individual, this leader, and I said his name. As you know, firing a blank is chaotic enough. But with Rick sabotaging MSU, missions, and other areas, including an MFM letter that I didn't approve, I am in constant damage control. And it's because he's the chairman of the board. He even said in the letter, because I'm continuing as chairman of the board. What a mess. That was only supposed to last a year, by the way. Here is the response by this leader. Chris, I do believe you are here in this place by divine direction. And while I know you have options, you are considering, okay? I would like to encourage you, the decisions you have made and the leadership you have and are providing for MorningStar at this time is critical for this place. you have made more progress in this ministry in less than a year that is bringing this place to new horizons. The problems Rick has created over the last 15 years, you've cleaned up in less than a year. Remember, part of Jeremiah's commission was not only to build and plant, but to root out and to pull down. This is what you're doing right now, is rooting up and pulling down. Blank, this is somebody that is no longer at the ministry, was part of that rooting up. No one else could do that. No one else could do that, Chris. Rick has been the cause of most of these problems. But I do want to say I think we're coming to an end of this season before too long with Rick messing things up. And I fear to say this, but if Rick gets in your way, God will remove him. That was January the 8th, 2024, this very year. So he's saying, this top executive is saying, I have accomplished more in less than a year because I only took over in the end of February 2023. And so this message was in January 2024. So he's saying you've accomplished more in less than a year than what's been accomplished in 15 years. That's because of the tower. That's because of making changes. That's because of a lot of different stuff. I think the culture, the community was starting to change in a positive way. And, that right there shows you the level of dishonesty that is now being projected upon people, that somehow I was this terrible leader with poor leadership, that I did this terrible job, when the truth is they were not saying that just a few months ago. And now those same people that were telling me that are now telling Rick that I was the problem, that I did all of this stuff. And,
Chris Reed reflects on his resignation, stating it has been nearly 3 weeks since he stepped down, and expresses discomfort in making the series of videos on his channel trying to defend himself from the misinformation peddled by the MorningStar executives. It is disappointing to see what Rick is doing to Chris. In my view, he is not happy that he resigned, and he has been talking very ill about that decision. I agree with Chris when he says that the bad things they are saying about him after his resignation is pure witch hunt. He has receipts to prove it. If Rick feels Chris was visionless, he had enough time to evaluate him, guide him, etc., considering he was still around. That shows Rick is lying in most of the things being said against Chris. He is just aggrieved with Chris's resignation. Initially, Chris was a bit diplomatic in the reasons he gave for his resignation, but he has now explained the real reasons that made him leave MorningStar.
It's just amazing to me why he cannot understand that these lawsuits that are coming out against MorningStar, these videos of past former students, and I'm sorry for what they've been through, these lawsuits and all these things that happened before I took over, that's not the reason I left. That was the straw that broke the camel's back. You can see in January of this year, I was already done. I was exhausted mentally and wore out because Rick did not fully let go. He was constantly inserting himself. In fact, I would say, by the way, I want to apologize to Dave Yarns, because I have figured out who stole that domain that I shared in the last video. And speaking of that, I saw some of the spiritual abuse, mental abuse, emotional abuse that Rick gave to people that were not in his inner circle, that weren't sucking up to him. I watched him fire an employee one time, and told the man, "You've cost this ministry more money than you're worth. You're not worth the bullet to shoot you." I heard that with my own 2 ears. And see, Rick sees everything through a military lens. He sees the church because of the scriptures that talk about put on the full armor of God, and the Bible talks about the army of God. And so I know why he's so upset with me and why he has continued to try to put out this innuendo implying that there's terrible stuff coming out about me and more stuff coming out about me. It's all to create this cloud of suspicion around me because he's trying to bury me. He doesn't want the story to be about the lawsuits and the past being relitigated that I knew I could not speak to, trying to lead the ministry forward. And if lawsuits weren't reinstated, it was going to stop all the progress I'd made with the tower. So I knew I was at a dead end. The lawsuits are not why I left. It was the straw that broke the camel's back. Hands down.
He addresses misconceptions about his previous statements, indicating that the reality of the situation was not fully represented. Reed criticizes Rick Joyner, suggesting that Joyner has perpetuated problems within the ministry over the past 15 years, which he believes he has been working to resolve. He emphasizes the importance of rooting out issues within the ministry, asserting that he played a crucial role in addressing these problems. So, what is next for Chris Reed?
You know, through this time, it's been amazing to me because I've had people that I don't even know. Missy and I have received hundreds, if not thousands, of messages. I've been betrayed by 2 or 3 of my closest ministry friends because of the stuff that Rick is saying. Just completely walked away from me, like had promised me they were going to stand with me and then walk. But yet, I'll tell you what, I'm amazed at the hundreds, if not thousands, of messages of people that are saying, "We see what has clearly happened here. You were thrown under the bus when you resigned." It was like Rick saying, "If we can't have you, no one's going to have you at all." And I just think that is control and manipulation, and I think that's why there's such a spirit of oppression, warfare, and witchcraft in that facility. You know, it's interesting too because KD, and I'm just trying to be respectful of her identity. I know she's already put out videos and putting her name, but she said in the video of the interview that a MorningStar staff member gave the reporter that first broke this news story, she said a MorningStar staff member, didn't say who it was, they were just on staff at MorningStar, gave the tip to the reporter, gave her identity to the reporter. And she also said that it was her understanding that when the reporter talked to her, that the reporter told her, "I was the one who gave her name." Now, why in the world would I do that? I never gave her name. I never told the reporter the thing. The reporter lied. She flat lied in the report to the 33-year-old woman, to Catherine. She lied to her. I'm telling you, that reporter was only speaking to me and to Rick Joyner, and they wanted to destroy me so that I could not continue going on in ministry. But I'm going to tell you, even though those 2 or 3 my closest friends walked away, I've had hundreds, if not thousands, reached out and message my wife and I both and say, "We see what's going on. It is clear what has happened here." And the fact that Rick keeps pounding on me from the pulpit, it is obvious that he wanted to bring you down because he did not want you to hurt MorningStar, which I never wanted to do to begin with, ever, or have a ministry successful outside of MorningStar. Here is my actual website, chrisreedministries.net. And people are signing up there for my newsletter. If they put their email in, it shares the mission and the vision. And it talks about the Acts 2:42 mandate. Sign up for the newsletter to get prophetic words, biblical teachings, kind of let you know what I'm doing. You can give by text the word give to 843-885, whatever it was there. Hold on. Yeah, text the word give to 843-885-8030. Now, I want you to see the rest of this, because the tabs on this, if you go up here, you see the Acts 2:42 vision, the ways that you can give also, and we will not share your information. chrisreedministries.net. By the way, as I said, I do know who stole the other domain. I just wanted you to see that there is two-faced stuff being said. I covered their identities. Once again, these were not texts to embarrass them or conversations that I've had with, friends in the ministry where we're being lighthearted. This is showing, frankly, it ought to show Rick. If a top leader, a top executive at MorningStar, at the Fort Mill base, would tell me that 8 months ago, that if he keeps doing this stuff, God himself will remove him. Because, Chris, you've done more in less than a year than what they've been able to do in all these years, and that Rick has caused most of these problems. I just want to say to Rick, if he would say that to me about you, imagine what they will say to you and everybody else about me. Thank you to everyone who has been kind. I'm going to be announcing something pretty significant here in the next bit of time, a future. Please go to chrisreedministries.net, sign up so you can be kept up to date on what I'm doing. Something big is coming, not in the world, but something big is coming. I love you. God bless you. Thank you for your kindness, your support. Continue to pray for my wife and my kids. They're hurting in all of this because they see what's been done to their dad.
While he hasn't revealed every detail yet, Chris has expressed that he's excited about the future. He plans to continue in ministry, likely developing a platform that's more in line with his personal calling and theological convictions. And based on his past work, we're sure he'll continue to be a powerful voice in the Christian community. What do you think about Chris Reed's resignation? Do you think this will have a big impact on MorningStar Ministries? And where do you see Chris Reed's ministry going next? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more updates on this story and other faith-related content. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.